for other bee questions at the end, because it's an ongoing process, but you asked about the micro-apiary project. There's a program called Micro-Apiaries. It's a relatively new program, and the guy who thought about it is here, and he's going to talk to you about micro-apiaries, and that's Mr. Dan Lewis.
All right. Man. There it is.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, I got into beekeeping and I became not so much of a beekeeper, but a honeybee, because I love honey. And so the way I got into beekeeping was like many people. I just wanted to save some bees that happened to be in the wrong place on my property, so I called some folks, looked up in the internet, and there was the Broward Bee Association. They sent me a couple of mentors, and they came and they took this huge hive that was in a collapsed trash can, plastic trash can, with their arms. They told me before they were going to do that I should go buy the equipment and get a suit. I looked like a guy from space, Gumby, and it was perfectly white, perfectly clean, and nothing was going to touch me. These guys came in just a skirt, and I mean just easy, and they reached into this trash can with their bare hands. After that, I became a beekeeper. I've been a beekeeper, backyard beekeeper for about 5 years, and for all those people who are not a beekeeper, who would like to be one, let me tell you, it's fun, it's easy, you can do it, and more importantly, thanks to the various bee associations in Broward County in particular, you have a lot of people who you can call for help. A lot of the licensing has to do with disease and other things and other problems. You won't necessarily see that. You'll just basically be managing your bees and making them feel good, splitting them and having the normal issues. And the more you play with bees, the more you'll get hooked by it. And the more you'll learn, the more you'll become a bee geek. And instead of being just very simple, I got some bees and I'm going to go get some honey, you're now talking about, genetics and DNA, weaning, and all this other stuff. And that's really interesting, but that's the secondary thing. When I first became a beekeeper because of that situation, I went to a number of Broward Bee Association meetings a number of years ago. And the biggest problem that beekeepers were talking about is that bees were under attack. They had the collapse, the colony collapse issues. Nobody really knew what that was from. You had 30% loss of beehives. You had a very unusual patchwork of backyard beekeepers in Broward County, in South Florida in particular. And one of the biggest problems that bees had, I'm assuming that most people here understand the importance of bees for the diversity of our plant life, as well as for our food. Because we wouldn't have the kind of trees and the flowers and flora. I live in Victoria Park in Fort Lauderdale. We have a lot of trees, a lot of plants. We wouldn't have that diversity without bees. And so the problem with backyard beekeeping is we're running out of space. Anybody who drives on any road in Broward knows we're an urban county. We aren't a rural county. And where do the bees stay? Where are the bees supposed to be? So in concert with a number of people who were bees, I said, why can't we use some of the public space that we as taxpayers pay for? We pay for government space, we pay for parking lots, we pay for bus depots, we pay for parks, we pay for municipal buildings, county buildings, state buildings. We pay for all those, and every one of those has public spaces as part of that. Why can't we put a little apiary in each one of those spaces in a patchwork of all around Broward? I mean, we already own that. And it's important. And the people who I talk to at the Bee Association and others say, well, we rescue bees, but we don't have any place to put them. Because where are you going to put them? If you have a real business of rescuing bees, which is a good thing, Where are you going to put them? And by the way, if you ever have to talk to a person who says they're going to take bees from your house, and they're going to get live bees, or live bees from a water meter or something, the question you need to ask them is, okay, so now you're going to save this colony of bees, where are you going to put them? Because if they don't know where they're going to go, they're going to kill those bees. Or as one pest guy does, he says he does live bees, he puts them in his truck and he drives out on 27, and by the time he's done, there's no more bees. Okay, so the idea came, let's build small little apiaries on public property. That was the micro apiary concept. So we thought a 10 by 10 garbage type enclosure, you know, like what many places have, a little wall around them, the garbage thing. And we were going to initially, the first one in the world was going to be here. But we had some political issues, and that became a problem. And by the way, I'm on the board of the Broward Regional Health Planning Council and was the past chair of the Broward County Charter Review Commission and Growth Management Advisory Council. And so I knew a lot of the political structure to try to do this, so I wasn't coming in here empty-handed with just an idea. So we started off with the design of being just simply a fence like this. In fact, we were going to put it right there on the other side of this enclosure here and put slats in it, a 5-foot fence, slats, and put 5 hives or 10 hives or 12, 15 hives, and that's it. Well, things evolved. We built it. We were able to raise a little bit of money. So the first micro apiary in the world for public property was put in Oakland Park at John Pastoral Park. Really cool. Since then, we've got, I think we have one in Tradelands Park. Broward County and their park system wanted to put them in Broward County parks. So we have one in Tradelands right now. We have one scheduled for Heritage Park and Treetops Park. We are talking to the cities of Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, Parkland, Sunrise, Davie. We're still talking here, right, John? For Dania Beach, Hollywood, and other places.
Coral Springs and Parkland.
Yeah, and right now we have planned 15 that are pretty well down the plan, which is really cool. We have now 4. We have one that just opened in Deerfield Beach, which is really cool, and they're recycling beach. Never in the world has this happened where public property was used for bees. And the reason that we did it with the public policy is that we pay for our parks and leisure services, and I was one of the people who sponsored and who created the $400 million bond in 2000 to buy parkland and to buy other space to preserve it for Broward County. And I said, listen, part of the responsibility of government is to nurture and protect our environment, and you can't do that without also doing bees and the plants and the wetlands and everything else, everything combined. Since we built the first one and the second one, and now the third and fourth and so forth, we've had people from all over the country and all over the world come and look at our micro apiary program. Micro apiary is a small, generally 10 to 15 feet by 10 feet enclosure in public property. It has to be specially licensed by the state. They sign off on it. We do surveys, make sure it's fine. We also have a distribution network where we want to make it, not closer than 5 miles or 4 or 5 miles, so we have it all on a geo map, and it's really cool. And here's what we're doing now. Now we have a platform where people can do studies on bees, an A/B study, and other things in a controlled environment. It also, the plan for the micro apiaries was to launch drones up in the air from managed hives to help create a bio wall against the more aggressive Africanized bees that are coming up from the south. And all those things were theoretical, but it seems to be working. We now have the ambitions and the audacity to think that we can actually create, if we get enough of these set up, something called a Broward bee. Instead of a European bee, we're going to have a Broward bee. Why is that possible? Because queen rearing is kind of complicated, and for all those people who want to get into backyard beekeeping and beekeeping, the top of the line is when you start to make queens, and then you get certified with European queens, and now you got all these queens. You're like, hey, cool, I'm making these queens. Why can't we make a Broward queen?
Yeah.
That's the best.
Yep.
And when people want to start a backyard colony, why can't they go to someone who has managed bees and who has brought them and recovered them and buy a newt of bees, of Broward bees, and take them home, make them pets of some sort. So that's the idea that we're doing. It's really kind of interesting and exciting, and we're moving. We hope that right now we have about 15 planned. Our goal was to put 30 in Broward County. We know they're going to start doing some in other places in Florida. We know they're going to start doing some in Georgia and other states, and it's really cool. And it now means that if you're a beekeeper in Broward, you can be particularly proud that we invented together a word that's not part of beekeeping. Micro apiary. And just as an interesting thing as I close and answer any questions, initially we said it was the micro honeybee apiary, and there were some distinguished people from other states who said, are you talking about little midget bees? We have to be very careful, so we said the honeybee micro apiary. Thank you.
I have a question. You
Yes.
harvest the honey from the micro apiary, and what do you do with it if you do harvest it?
Okay, you're not talking to somebody who owns the micro apiary.
No, I understand that. The county does.
Here's how it works. The property owner, in this case the governmental entity typically, owns the apiary to 4 walls. And then they retain a manager, a beekeeper, to manage those bees consistent with the state requirements. All right? Part of that permit for the person who is managing the bees, we built the enclosure, that's about $7,500. And by the way, we put windows in them because we found out that these are great educational facilities, so people can go look at the bees and kids can do programs, and it's very educational. So it's about $7,500. The beekeeper who manages the inside of the bees, those hives are his or hers. Okay? They enter into an agreement to manage those bees on behalf of the property owner. And they have their license on them. So those beehives in there are licensed to them. Sometimes the agreement will be that they'll share the honey, the produce. Sometimes the bees will be available for sale and replenished as recovery happens. And interestingly enough, we also found out from our experience now with the micro apiaries to support live bee recoveries is that we now need to find a quarantine area to bring bees to quarantine that are taken from the jungle and quarantine them to make sure that they're healthy and available before they go into the micro apiary. So it's really kind of interesting, but I hope I answered your question. Yes, ma'am. If you want to do backyard beekeeping at your house, it's about $300 or so. I mean, it's not bad. And the truth is, the equipment is pretty simple. The bee suit, you go crazy like I did first. I mean, I wear boots and gum bee. I don't get stung.
Stay where I put.
There's some other beekeepers that I get stung. I don't care. I do care. I don't like it. I don't get stung. And so I spend a little bit more money in protection. And I have a simple rule with my bees. I consider them armed and extremely dangerous until they prove otherwise. So, there's things. But I have actually built an apiary at my house to kind of mirror the kind of apiaries that we have other places, because I show elected officials and other people what you can do. And I live in Victoria Park, less than a mile from Las Olas. So, that's where I keep bees. So it's inexpensive, it's fun, it's worth it, and the truth is, if you have a couple of hives, you're going to find that it's really a lot of fun. In the honey alone, you can sell to your neighbors at the cuckoo line. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. In fact, that was one of the... Oh, I'm sorry. Am I familiar with hives that they use in commercial areas? Like in Paris, they have them on guards and so forth. The answer is yes. That was part of my argument to the elected officials and policymakers. I told them, listen, if the Plaza Hotel in New York can have beehives in their garden on the 4th floor, then why the hell can't we have it in a relatively unused area in a park? And by the way, the fence here is 6 feet, John, right? And then on top of that, we put trellis now for another 2 feet, so the bees just go straight up. So you can sit right next to the apiary, unless you have a lot of perfume on or scented stuff, and the bees are going straight up. And bees, another great issue that I was always asked about, it says, well, if you bring us a micro apiary at, for example, Tradewinds Park, isn't that going to saturate all the bees right here? And the answer is no. Bees will forage up to about 4 miles, depending on who you talk to. And they're going to go wherever the food is. If you have food right there, they're going to be there. But then once that's depleted, they're gone. They travel and they shoot out of these hives. If you stand back and if you go to Oakland Park or Tradewinds and look at these bees, they're going fast. They're going bang, and they're out. They're gone. And it's really kind of interesting. But it's cheap. You should do it. If you have any hesitation, don't. Go have fun, and it's good for everything. But do get licensed. And then get a mentor who will help you walk through everything and deal with everything. I started at the same time John did. The difference is he really knows his beekeeping, and I'm just purely a hobbyist. Okay, so I'm more like everybody here. Yes, sir.
Have you thought about putting these apiaries on state land?
Yes.
And what does the state say?
We're working on it. The parks, it's hard. It just and they have their parks in different places. We'll also talk about putting we've got Broward College that wants the apiaries. They want to put them on their property or on their roofs. And they want to put together a program. What's the program? The degree, John? Is it environmental studies?
Yeah, the Department of Natural Sciences, along with their environmental studies and their medical program, they want to do a certificate program for beekeepers.
Imagine that, Broward College giving a certificate for beekeeping. So it's really kind of cool stuff because it's public policy, it's good policy, and I tell elected officials, I tell them bees are good for the environment and they're good politics. So think about it.
And if the bees die, we die. So we need bees.
Well, I don't even get that. If you want to get reelected, you want to be bee friendly. And we have a lot of bee people in the area who will be happy to be impressed that you're supporting a good program like this.
And a lot of sticky policies.
Huh?
Sticky policies.
Yeah. A lot of sticky policies. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you very much. Interesting about Mr. Lewis is that there are a lot of people that were trying to do this apiary in public locations for a long time, way before he showed up and way before I was fortunate enough to get involved in it. And we kind of like showed up at just the right time when these are good politics, and Dan has good friends that helped us make things possible on a governmental level, and we just kind of stepped into it. The program is really cool, and you could, if you want any more questions, see Dan or me after the meeting.